Today's podcast is about 8 ways to possibly stop and hopefully prevent fights in the relationship. Now, when you and your spouse or your partner are always fighting, it might seem that more arguments are just inevitable. They're going to happen. So this podcast is about ways that we can help each other learn ways to avoid future arguments. And I've got a few strategies that I would like to share with you to hopefully stop the fight before it even starts. Okay? Number 1. It's important to try to become better at active listening. Not only can becoming an active listener improve your relationship by possibly stopping fights, but it can also help improve you in other areas of your life. So I encourage you to really, make a point to try to become a better active listener, listen to what your spouse or partner has to say, and you can also practice this in other areas of your life. And I think you'll see, globally speaking, you'll see a real change. A good way to practice this is when they start talking to you, try to become an active listener, and then ask questions to show that you're really engaged, like questions relevant to what they are saying. And don't use these questions to try to deviate or get off track or start, making excuses for anything. No, make sure your questions are responsive and relevant to what they are saying. This is basic communication skills, and lacking this ability could really breed or further insecurity in the relationship. Okay, so that's the number 1 tip. Something else you can do is do not speak too fast, or maybe pause before you say something. Because when we're in the moment, we're upset, we might say something that's hurtful and that we will regret later. So next time you feel like you're discussing a serious issue that could quickly become heated, just pause for a moment, count to 3, and breathe before you say something that could be very harsh and hurtful. And remember, breathing and counting is a great way to push the pause button on the argument before it really you say something you're really going to regret later, and then the whole thing just spirals into a horrible, bad fight. That's escalation. We don't want that. All right, next step is empathy. I want to encourage you to be more empathetic. Okay, so what is empathy? What is sympathy? All right, I'm going to go and tell you my own definition when somebody says, what is sympathy? What is empathy? When someone asks, what is sympathy? I think I would say it's the ability to share feelings with the other person based on what they went through. You feel bad for them. You want to help them. That's sympathy. Now, there's something else called empathy, meaning maybe you don't really agree with what somebody did, but in a way you do have a objective or understanding of where they're coming from. For example, I don't agree with juveniles committing crimes, but when you look at the entire city map and you see where most crimes are happening by juveniles, might be in areas of the city that are underfunded or have more complex social issues. And yes, I don't agree with the criminal committing a crime, but I'm not naive either. I get it. They're in a bad neighborhood. They probably didn't have all the same opportunities as a lot of people. So in a way, I understand where they're coming from. That's empathy. So same thing in the relationship. You don't maybe the spouse or partner is just doing something you can't stand, and you're not going to sympathize for that behavior because that would be you just can't condone that, I suppose. But, you should at least try to understand where they're coming from. Maybe, they're a little snippy because they had a long day at work. And, you don't want to condone being rude and snippy and doing things that start arguments. But at the same time, you have to understand where they're coming from. Maybe they have an illness, like some kind of physical illness is really taking a toll on them. They have long days at work. They're working so hard to be a good provider, and they're under a lot of stress. And, but when they're home, we really need to make the home a good environment where everyone can just, kind of recharge their emotional batteries. The home should not be a place where your emotional battery is further drained. That's for work. That's for going out into the real world and getting out there and working so hard. That's where the emotional batteries can be drained. But when you go home, it really needs to be a recharging station. You could really, I hope you're able to quickly see why empathy is important. So try to be empathetic. Okay, another great tip, and this, hopefully everyone hears this, is don't worry or stress out so much about always having to be right. If we have those relationships where there always has to be a winner. Or you have that spouse or partner, they always feel like there's only a right answer and a wrong answer to everything. But if people who are more, I guess, self-aware understand that there's not always a single right and a single wrong. There's lots of shades in between. It's possible for two people to be right about something they feel strongly about, but maybe you have to look at, okay, this person is right and that person's right. So let's just do what's in the best interest of the family. That may be a tiebreaker. So again, let's not stress out about always being right all the time. All that's going to do is possibly create an abusive relationship where one partner, if they don't admit that the other partner is always right, it can quickly turn into a situation where that person's always being put down or being made to feel bad about themselves, made to feel guilty. We don't want that. So let's not worry so much about being right all the time. But then again, that doesn't mean you have to agree that they're right either. So let's just get off of that and agree that there are shades of gray in between. And I'll give you a little pro tip. When a couple is always arguing about who is right, there are no winners in that relationship. There are no winners. It's just one person who allows the other person to believe they're right, and then the other person who will only accept being right. There are no winners here. It's a failing game. So, yeah, I get it. Maybe you're technically right, but okay, you're right, but that did not mean you won. You're not the winner in the argument. In fact, you probably burned a bridge or sabotaged something special because being right was so important to you. So at the end of the day, you're nobody's a winner. I guess one thing we could do is maybe meditation, maybe read some books on this, but maybe it's something about letting go. And I do have a lot of podcasts about letting go. I think we can apply the, letting go of trauma, but maybe we could figure out a way to use those podcasts about letting go or just other books or great materials out there on how to let go of the need to be right in a relationship. Maybe what we need to do is don't think of relationship like me and he or she and me. Let's think about we. Because remember, you and your spouse, you guys are a team. And there is no I in team. I am right. We can both be right. We can both be wrong. We can both be winners. We can both be losers. We is the right answer here, not I versus you. So remember, when you're married or you're in a serious relationship, you are one flesh. You are one person. That I turns into a we. You're now a team. Help your teammate out. Be a team player. Don't be so because it can be very divisive. You're dividing a relationship by right and wrong. And if the team is a house and a house divided cannot stand, what does appear in the Bible in the book of Matthew chapter 12 that a house divided cannot stand, and that was also used in Abraham Lincoln's speech in reuniting the South and the North. Here, let me put it this way. The only times I ever want to see a couple fighting because the house is divided would be maybe one is a Cowboys fan and one's a Texans fan. That's tolerable division. But at the end of the day, even though maybe one person's a Cowboys fan, one is a Texans fan, and that house is divided in that area, I would pray that at a minimum the hearts are united. So think of it that way. You're still a team. Now here's a tip to winning. It is possible for both parties to win if they compromise on an issue. Think about that for a second. Okay, next tip. I want you to be better at communication skills. Build these skills together. Make sure they are good, healthy communication skills. Because when there are bad or poor communication skills, this can cause all kinds of problems in the relationship. Now, I do remember when I was in the military, I was in the Army. When I'd served in Iraq, we had a commander, colonel. One thing he really pushed for was communication within the officers, within the NCOs, the enlisted. Make sure information was always being properly communicated. Because honestly, whenever something wrong would happen, whether it was within our control or outside of our control, the effects could have been avoided or at least minimized had there been better communication skills. And that was something, whenever there was like a crisis or a disaster, one thing he always did was at the meeting table, he would always, he called it peeling back the onion. I can't believe I'm using that. Peeling back the onion. Try to find out what's going on here. Okay, so we have an issue. Let's kind of peel back the onion a little bit and look inside. Okay, what happened? What went wrong to cause this thing to happen? And it always really came back to communication. He's like, well, Mr. Staff Officer over here, maybe did you talk to Staff Officer over there? The answer, no. Or did this officer over here or that NCO, did they communicate? No. And then, so it's just bad communication, which led up to the incident X. So communication skills, communication within the family. I personally recommend family meetings, maybe once a week or twice a week. Just make sure everyone's on the same page. Talk about, easy thing to do is talk about the calendar the next week or two out. Always make sure childcare is in order. There's always a plan. If we're going to go out and do something, make sure there's a plan. That way there's no stress and last minute fighting and all this stuff. But I do have a great library of podcasts. Check it out. Please hit the subscribe button that go into better understanding the motivations and desires of parties in a relationship. Okay, so that's communication skills. Okay, next tip, and I'm going to say this, maybe give couples therapy a shot. Maybe you need a licensed professional counselor to jump in and try to bring a little bit of common sense to all the chaos. Maybe they can help you build strategies or create strategies to improve the relationship so it doesn't turn into an expensive divorce or custody matter and all that stuff. I will say though, if there's some underlying issues underlying causes. Maybe a professional can help identify those things, which would actually go into my earlier comment about what is causing the partner, for example, not to have great communication skills. So maybe couples therapy is the right thing to do. And I did say earlier about when I was going on my point about the importance of having healthy and communication skills. I specifically stated I didn't want to go, this audio would quickly become too complex, and because we would start getting into how a couples therapist might handle it, and I'd like to stay in my lane just a little bit. Okay. So there's no shame in going to couples therapy. I recommend, just go ahead and plan on, a few sessions, maybe 5 sessions. I think, me personally, and this is not mental health advice, but I think after probably the 3rd session, you'll have a good grasp of where the relationship is going, because the therapist helped, or the counselor really helped to try to distill some of the issues and the causes of having problems in the relationship. Okay, so the next tip I would like to share with you is the importance of sharing and opening up about your feelings. If you're always locking those feelings up deep inside, they will eventually come out, and it's going to come out at the wrong time, and it's not going to be helpful to anybody, and it might actually just harm your relationships. And I'm not talking about just your relationship with your partner or your spouse. I'm talking about other outside relationships. So if something's bothering you, it's important to talk about it, or rely on a close friend on how to address a situation. If somebody's doing something inappropriate, makes you feel uncomfortable, and I'm not really talking about the relationship itself, but just something out there is inappropriate and makes you feel uncomfortable, maybe get some advice from a close, trusted friend on how you should approach it. Maybe sometimes, if somebody's doing something that makes them feel uncomfortable, just kind of have a neutral third party step in and kind of have a nice conversation with the other person to say, hey, this is inappropriate. Please stop, or adjust your behavior. But you have to open up. That is critical. If you just bottle everything inside and not express yourself in a healthy way, then those emotions will come out, whether it's through healthy communication skills or hopefully not in some type of physical impulsive behavior like hitting or slapping or grabbing things. That's the bad way of expressing feelings, is through impulsive physical behavior. We want to learn ways to express yourself in healthy ways. So I think a good thing you can do is, if you're in a serious relationship, then let down your damn guard. Tell them how you feel. Don't try to bottle everything up and then just only be snippy at them. Talk to them. Let them know what's going on. It's called I feel statements. Use say, I feel sad when you do this. And so let them know how it makes you feel, but be careful. Don't use the I word too much, because remember, it's not about I. It's at this point it's we. It's about the team. You're no longer an individual. You're one flesh. So maybe think of it that way. Hey, we're one team here, and this is I want this relationship to work out more than anything. Just please talk to me, and I want you to first know this is how I feel about something. So that way it's not coming off as an accusation or I'm right, you're wrong. None of that. It's really just you're trying to you want there to be a strong bridge. So be open, talk about your feelings. Okay, this is the final tip in my 8 ways to stop or possibly stop and hopefully prevent fighting in your marriage or relationship. But the last tip is space. Give the other person some space. I know there's a lot of issues we need to talk about, and there's probably a lot of things, we probably shouldn't talk about. Especially when everyone's emotional. So if there's something you need to talk about while everyone's emotional, let's maybe push the pause button. Breathe. Let's count to 3. Let's go on a walk. I think it says it takes an average of 17 minutes for adrenaline to calm down in the brain. So, say, use your Amazon Echo and ask it to set a timer for 20 minutes. And then after the timer goes off, then, you're allowed to discuss these issues. Hopefully when everyone's not so angry at each other. So give each other some space, I think, and I would recommend maybe 20 minutes. During that 20 minutes, we're going to separate, we're going to think, we're going to breathe, we're going to calm down, do a lot of counting, and then reconvene with your I feel statements. Maybe that would help significantly. Anyways, I hope today's podcast has helped you. Please like and subscribe, and thank you for listening.